everybody, lovely friends here today, and thank you very much for coming out on a Monday morning to hear Nina speak about the Sunshine Coast Art Collection. Nina Shadforth is the Senior Curator for the Sunshine Coast Public Art Collection, and this is her baby. Every second year she manages to put together an incredible exhibition, and I love the way the gallery's set out for this particular exhibition. So much going on, so much excitement, and I'd like to welcome you all here today to listen to Nina, and I hope you all have bellies full of lovely homemade morning tea. Couple more seats up the front here. Robin? But welcome, and thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Fiona, and welcome everyone. Firstly, I wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are gathered here today, the Caloundra and Curator peoples, and pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. And just before I start, I'd also like to introduce, don't sit down yet, introduce my assistant curator, specialising in public art, is Julie Horrocks. So we work together as a team, and so she's also here today, and she'll talk a bit about the public art side of things as well. So you just don't have me talking the whole time. It's a bit of everything. So thanks, Julie, and welcome to everyone. So the Sunshine Coast Art Collection, we are trying very hard to make art visible through this collection, and hence why every 2 years we put on a view and insight into the collecting activity of over the last 2 years. So this is behind the scenes, and we'll talk you through the collection and the exhibition and projects that we take on as well. So, and the hows and the whats and the whys. So here's a bit of an overview, and don't need to read everything out there, but I've just kind of listed that. So that's kind of what we're going to go through. One thing I don't have on there is obviously questions from the floor, but we'll hold your questions as you're going through, and we'll do Q&A at the end. The other thing I would like to just mention, housekeeping. If there's an emergency, just follow one of the gallery staff. Will direct you out the main exit, entry doors, and take you to a designated safe area until it's safe to come back in. So just follow us, basically. And the bathrooms, the toilet key is at its usual spot at reception, and so if you do need a bathroom break, the key's at the reception, and just head out down the side of the gallery. There will be somebody to let you back in, so the door will be locked during this event. Okay, so an overview of the exhibition, the latest and greatest. So this is a series of exhibitions. We're in our third iteration, so that's over a period of 6 years. And, it sort of came out of the need to share what is in a public collection. Oftentimes the art collections mainly live behind closed doors, coming out occasionally for exhibitions, but generally you'll only see a small percentage of an art collection on public display. So we try to, break the mold by having this exhibition every 2 years, and to show what the collection is made up of, what is coming into the collection, what is new. And this year's exhibition, I've decided to break it up and curate it as mini concepts for future exhibitions. So when you think about it, we are talking in the space of a new regional gallery in years to come. So there will be a collections gallery as part of that new regional gallery. And so these are just little seeds that we're planting for future development of exhibitions. So just to run through, and after the talk, you can spend a bit of time to have a look around. We'll move this out of the way. But the humankind's and diversity identity are in Gallery 3. So we're just looking at how we can theme works in the collection and combine them into a designated theme rather than separate them into paintings, into sculpture, into drawings, into photography and into public art. So we've just sort of mixed it all in. Abstract, subtract, so that's in the middle section there, and that's dominated by David Rankin. Digital dimensions is also in that section there, so we do have more digital works, one behind me, and of course one in Gallery 3. So the digital works are a fairly new addition to the collection, given that last year was the first time that we introduced digital media as part of the Sunshine Coast National Art Prize, and subsequently it won the art prize last year. So that was our first digital artwork to come into the collection. She, her, so that's where you're sort of seated, just where Stu is, where the camera is. So just looking at the female represented in art and various art forms. You have the beautiful Dagmar Cirilla work, it's a very commanding piece, plus there's some local artists in there, and there's also some beautiful 3D bronze forms as well. Sites and structures to your left. We have some beautiful works by local artists, and I think one of those local artists is here. Margie, just put your hand up, so most of you would know Margie. We've got local art, and we also have work that was a finalist in last year's art prize, works that came from the local contemporary prize, and another work that was through a cultural gift. So, and that there's a sketch, a pencil sketch. The painting of that study is currently hanging in at Gordon Library. It's quite a large work, you can't miss it. Spirit Stories is where we are here. So it starts with the beautiful Judith Angela Crispin work, a previous GAP winner, all along the wall here, all women artists, and then we have both women and men artists combined in this 9-panel work, Together We Stand, and then behind me is the men's, examples of men's work in the collection. First Nations are either Cubby Cubby, Yinabara, or out of the region. So there's a bit of a mix in here. And just a little bit about the work, Together We Stand. That was actually a COVID collaboration work. So during COVID, obviously with lockdowns, the lead artist, Shalene Hughes, she specialises in cyanotypes. So she created a whole heap of cyanotypes and reached out to as many artists as she could. And this was the response of the artists. So she posted them her cyanotype and asked them to collaborate with a work of theirs on that. So that's the culmination of that project. We also have water worlds and undercurrents, so that's in the main gallery one. So very obvious about water or themes or things happening beneath the surface. The most striking work in that space is the Joanne Curry Malingu, a 7-panel work that was a donation through the Cultural Gifts program. It was hanging in the Sunshine Coast City Hall building. We've just got it back. And it was first viewed or displayed in the Bay Art Histories exhibition back in 2022. And other realms and occupants, so the other side of the wall in that Water Worlds area, where we have works by Peter Hudson, works by Libby Durham and Peter Strickland, and a number of others, beautiful maquettes for the public artwork chorus, which we'll go into a bit later. So You'll notice that there's 3D forms as well as 2D forms in amongst each of these themes. And to know where you are, just as a bit of an orientation, is that I've got little titles at the top of the wall, so you can sort of get a sense of where you are. So that's the overview of the exhibition, and each exhibition we produce a catalogue, both in print and online, and there's also a slideshow that gives you an image and the details of every work that's collected in the last 2 years. And there's also just little, there's some iPads dotted around that talks to you about the works, the public artworks that are on display, so you get a bit of behind the scenes backstory for those as well. Okay, an overview of the collection. So there's a dot point list of what we have in the collection. I think I've got everything. So it's quite diverse. And the collection, years ago, when there were 3 councils, they all had their own corporate collections, but no physical structure to collecting until amalgamation, and in 2016 Sunshine Coast Regional Council, as it was known then, engaged a consultant to do a significance assessment and a review of all the artworks that have been gathered in these 3 council collections, so Caloundra City Council, Noosa Shire Council and Ritchie Shire Council. Out of that, recommendations were made, and of course one of those, the key priority was a collections policy, and then the significance ranking. So the consultant went through every artwork, researched, and gave each artwork a ranking from highest to lowest. So we also have that as a foundation to help us with our collecting. And how do we acquire works? So this exhibition also shows you there's works that have been donated, just a straight out gift, with no financial benefit. The cultural gifts, so that's through the Australian Taxation Department, so office, and so it's a bit more in depth, a cultural gift. You need to, there's a bit of research that's required. There's also 2 independent valuations required, and then you prepare a submission. So that's what we do. We prepare the submissions, we engage valuers to value the works, and then the submissions sent to the Cultural Gifts Office, and we wait. And we wait and wait. So they have to then do their research, and they all meet. When I say they, there is a committee, and review each submission. So it's pretty much all of Queensland that has to, they have to go through the whole list. So sometimes it can take quite a while. But generally, once the submissions have been assessed, we get notification that it's been approved, and whatever the value that they have agreed on, that is generally an average between the 2 valuations, will then be applied to that donor's taxation, income taxation, their return. So it's quite a process. And before I go into commissions, which I'll call Julie up in a minute, art prizes, so obviously the local contemporary and of course the Sunshine Coast National Art Prize are key means for us to acquire works. And of course it enables us to acquire really contemporary visual artworks and contemporary dialogues in terms of what's happening in our country at the time, or in our region at the time. Purchase, very rarely, council will purchase artworks, but it's generally another department that might do that. It's not usually us. We don't actually have an acquisitions budget, not yet anyway. But hopefully in the future we'll have an acquisitions budget that we can actively target artists and artworks to help build the story of arts on the Sunshine Coast. So where there's gaps, we try to fill in other ways. And of course there's commissions. So Julie can talk about public art commissions, but I'll just quickly mention that the large First Nations work, Satisha Davis on the wall, that's a recent commission through one of Council's departments. It's the First Nations Partnerships team. So they will often commission a work for to use in their graphics for the stretch wrap programs, reconciliation programs and the like. The Turtles Gathering, the blue turtles there, that's another commission from another department in Council. So 6 years ago when I started, these sort of opportunities were not really, I didn't really know that they were there until I started to learn about what other parts of Council do, and knowing other parts of Council start to commission, we've started to work with other departments and they know the work that we do, so they come to us for guidance on artworks and of course trying to align everything to the collections policy. But then also enabling those works to come into the collection and help build the collection. So on other commissions is Julie to talk about public art.
I don't know if I need to come in the light or I don't want to cover that though. So that's still, is that right there? I can still see, everyone can see me still. So yes, welcome. It's been delightful the last, how many, over a year now? Since, yeah, at least 2 years. 2 years, it's all a bit of a blur. Previous to there being a collections team, public art was actually kind of floating in no man's land, so it was a little bit hickory-pickory, but now it's been great to work with Nina, so I just want to acknowledge all of her expertise in this space as well, which has been delightful. So public art usually comes in via a couple of different ways. So the first main way that we work with development of public art is when we have another area in council, say parks or building facilities or other teams that develop streetscapes and so forth, they generally will consider inclusion of public art in those spaces when they do the development design. So we've spent a lot of time advocating for the inclusion of public art in all new parks or streetscapes. So it's been about 8 years of progress to try and get everyone in council on board at the value of art in public place. And the collection of public artworks has been growing over the last 8 years, and I've been very grateful to be part of. One of our most recent, I'll just step to the side here, is this work, Juragunga. If you haven't been to City Hall yet, it's on Lightning Lane side, and I highly recommend you take time to go and have a look. It's a lot larger than it perhaps looks in the photograph. So if you were to stand near it, you'd probably only reach up about here. So it's just over 4 metres is the tallest. So it's quite a significant work. And the beauty of this development of this piece was it was part of the City Hall plan for public art that we have First Nations work feature. And we decided that it was crucial that we use our local First Nations artists, and as talented as they are, very few had experience in public art. So we had Brian Robinson, who's a significant Torres Strait Islander artist and public art artist, come down and spend time with 3 artists. So it was Auntie Hoko Chin, Lyndon Davis and Morris Niccolo. So this is Morris's work that I'm standing in front of. So those three artists work with Brian over a number of weeks and months, and in the process, each artist developed concepts, and then an independent panel selected the concept that was to go to commission, which was Lyndon Davis's work. So Curator is the story of the mullet and the sea eagle. So it's looking at the cycles of the seasons, and when the mullet run, and when the sea eagles come to feed off the mullet, and also when, what is it, callistemon bloom, when they bloom?
It's the
Melaleuca?
no.
Sorry, I can't remember this thing.
Is it the coral tree?
I'll have to look into that. I can't quite recall that. But they're quite red blooms. And so Lyndon's work was commissioned, and then we engaged a local company to work with Lyndon to refine his design into something that is financially able to be reconstructed. So these beautiful mullets here stand as a testament to a very long journey and a wonderful collaboration with the artists and a local contractor, and the delightful experience of seeing Lyndon actually paint these red lines by hand. So the forms were built and spray painted and sealed, and Lyndon went over by hand every single line, and if you go and see it, you'll realise how much time that he has put into that. It's quite extraordinary. So I've highlighted that quite detailed, but I might zoom through some of the other works. Over to my right is a work by a local artist, Finn Cossa, who also has a piece in the front called The Monks. And this work is Mount Biwa, and it was commissioned through funding with Landscape Design and Parks, who wanted some public artwork in Turner Park in Biwa. Biwa is starting to become a little bit of a creative hub for public art. We've got quite a few public artworks there now, which is pretty exciting. So these chains that built this beautiful sculpture actually locally sourced as well. So Finn had a lot of conversations with local people and sourced the old chain that originally was for tree clearing, which is obviously a little bit of a delicate subject at the time, but it's part of Biwa's history. So it's a recognition of the strength of the mountain and the resilience of First Nations people, but also the impact of us as colonial I'm going to say the word invaders, sorry. So that's a wonderful piece. And Finn's other work, The Monks in Montville, there's 7. If you haven't been to Montville, they start in Russell Fairman Park, and they actually go right up the street, and they're small and discoverable. So the idea of that behind it was quite creative. He had this fanciful species of mushroom that lived in the forest thousands of years ago, and the birds were eating it to extinction. So to survive that, it grew appendages that became then like fingers and could actually uproot themselves and wander to a more safe environment. So it's a beautiful story, and do have a look. There's some castings and examples that he made in the design development stage to refine what the outcome was. And then the beautiful chorus, which is the big birds and the flyover for the pedestrians and cyclists down at Baringa. That work has only recently come to us as part of the collection, even though it's been there for a few years. It takes time for that to happen with developers. It's James and Eleanor Avery, which are significant national and international public art artists, and it's one of our largest pieces that we have in the collection, and it's pretty exciting to have artists of that calibre join the collection as well. What else have we got?
We've got Simone and we've got Tori.
Oh yes, so Tori Richards, she had a piece that was not far away from Finn's work, which is in Turner Park in Biwa. It's called Mountain People. And she did this beautiful sculpture in clay and stones and then cast it in bronze. And it's really showing the precarious balance of man and nature together to create something really strong and powerful to represent the strength of Biwa and the resilience of the people in Biwa. Simone Eisler has a work at a park in Harmony. It's called Flintwood Crescent Park, I believe. It's called Wind Arbor is the artwork, and it's this beautiful hand-painted patina. If you are around that area, it's a lovely piece to walk through, and it's all been hand-painted, and the company who built it are called the Blacksmiths, and they're local in Rosemount here on the Sunshine Coast as well. So I think that's all of them, but if you're out and about and you see any and you're curious, come and see us. And if you haven't been on a public art tour, that's this Thursday, which I take a group. I think there's limited numbers. I'm not sure how many are booked in at this point, but check with the volunteers at the front counter. We do a walk up around the street, in the main street of Caloundra, and have a look at a number of works that we've commissioned, and have community commission as well. So feel free to join us.
It's meeting here at
8:30 meeting here, yeah, on Thursday. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ian.
Thanks, Julie. So for your insights about our recent public art collection. So the other thing I wanted to mention is that along with the collections policy, there's also an art collections guideline framework established. So that enables us to, any artwork that is proposed to us to add to the collection undergoes quite a rigorous process of assessment to ensure that we've got that alignment to collecting for the Sunshine Coast. And one thing I didn't mention is sometimes, like, just I think Joe Furlong works, we have quite a large collection of Joe Furlong works, and that's evolved over years. So it's also about relationships and developing a sense of that artist's work and what parts of that artist's work are suitable for the art collection. So there's a lot of consideration that has to be made in looking and considering artworks for the collection. And I'm just going to show you another image here. So see all these boxes, you can see the gallery van with some more boxes. So this is an example of a long-term, like a long relationship with a donor to establish what works will come into the collection. And it's quite a significant gift, and that is the David Rankin artworks. So 70 David Rankin works came into the collection. So there was about 3 trips to a storage container to bring the boxes of the works down, unpack them all. And at that time we also had an intern working with us, so we had to unpack every box, photograph and document every work. So when we document a work, which often is called a condition report, we will take all the physical measurements and details of the work, we'll take photographs of it, and then we'll go over it with a fine-tooth comb to see if there's any damage or any pests living in there. And I think I might even have a photo of a pest coming up, just to give you an example, and what we do in that instance. But and this isn't in the collection store, so that's another important aspect, is that we try not to unpack everything that's come from another source in the collection store for that very reason, that there might be a pest. And if that pest or the mould is left to sit in the store and it's active, it could potentially impact the artwork. So this is outside and this is inside. So all of these, pretty much all of them, bar a couple, are some of the David Rankin works that came in. So they're being wrapped in plastic, so that's another means to ensure that if there's any hidden pests, that they won't survive when they're sealed in the plastic. And then we'll check them again, like, regularly. Now, just some facts about the collection. These are from the 3 sort of iterations, by the way, and that's all available online. But just to let you know, so we started with, doesn't give you, that's sort of December 2020 was 733 artworks. And December 2024, we are, including public art artworks, we're sitting at 1,368 artworks. And the value of the art collection, both art and public art, sits somewhere between 8 and 12 million. So it's quite a significant cultural asset for the region that you actually own. And we manage it. That's basically the arrangement there. So in the last 2 years, the collection has increased by 26%. In this exhibition, there's 83 works, but there's actually, in the 2 years, there's 249 works in total. The gender breakdown is 43.58% are women artists and 52.56% are male artists. First Nations, 33%, local artists, 51%. Queensland artists, which also includes our local artists, that sits at 73%. Interstate is 24%, and a breakdown of 2D and 3D. So 2D artworks make up the most of the collection with 89%, and 3D artworks 6%. And when I say 3D, I'm not including public art, but that's separated. So public art is 2.5% of the entire collection, and digital art sits at 0.94%. So again, we're just dipping our toes there, so that will grow. That information, the blue section, is in the current catalogue, so that's online as well, if you wanted to refer to it. And in terms of our breakdown of acquisitions, like how we acquire them, in the last 2 years, 17.6% were cultural gifts, 19.6% were commissions by various organisations, including internal council organisations for departments, and the bulk of donations, individuals, and that sits at 58%. So there's a few interesting facts there that, and the reason why we sort of put that there is mainly for our councillors to talk to if they have to advocate on our behalf, that they've got something in a language that they understand, because that's often a bit of disparity between what we do, what's intangible, how they talk to that. So we give them things like that makes them happy. Numbers, basically. So, in saying that, and then we have, we're celebrating that we have all these artworks now. Where do we store it all? That's a common question. So here's a little few snaps of our collection store. So that section there is the most recent update. So this middle slide shows you one section. We had a whole compactus unit in this section here, and it had 5 bays. It was very tight, and actually didn't really store a great deal of artworks. So we removed it, and you can see that there's a whole bunch of things we've moved over to the other side of the store. That's the compactus down the bottom there being dismantled.
This is in this one.
Yes, so this is in the stack, what we call the stack. I don't know how it got that name, but it's called the stack.
This was the library.
This used to be a library, and Jen, sorry, but
Yeah, so if anyone's ever been in the stack is where all the old materials from the library,
there you go.
all the archives and things used to be stored, so that's still referred to as the stack from when it was previously a library.
And thanks, Jen, and that's some time ago, but the good thing about that storeroom is that it also is climate controlled, so that's another very important aspect for collection management, is to ensure that we have climate controlled conditions. This is when we cleared a lot of stuff out of the stack. This was over sort of the Christmas period, and we pulled everything out and sorted everything, and then we put it back in, and we have beautiful new shelves. It's very organised, and we also have, these are all our ceramics collection, so it's all very organised and much easier to manage and find works. But before we did that, we also visited other museums to see how they had their collection stores set up. So this is from the Queensland Museum's storage facility in Hendra. Although this isn't a collection, this is just a great little device for things like rolls of tissue and tapes and plastic and so forth. But it just gives you a sense of how they catalogue things and how they store them. They make custom stillages for objects. So if I go back to these, all of these crates have custom-made internal storage housing for each object because they're all different. And so one of our gallery program staff, Pete Liddy, who used to be at Goma, he's been creating these custom internals, so he calls it nesting. So he's been doing this nesting for our collection of ceramics. And then that's sort of behind gallery walls, but another means for us to store collection works is through council buildings. So this is mainly at City Hall, so in the lift lobbies, there's 7 levels there that we can store presented artwork. There's boardrooms, there's chambers. We also, backwards, libraries are another means for us to store and display work. So Kawana Library, Coolum Library, there's in the middle, there's the painting of that study. And Mulaney Library. So just, we try to expand as much as we can. And this is at Biwa, and I think that's also Mulaney. Caloundra as well have works from the collection in there. So we're very fortunate that we have all these buildings to display the collection works, and we rotate them roughly once a year. So they're not permanently out. Now, the other thing I've touched on is collection management, and so projects that we undertake, and of course conservation, and then just thought I'd also share when we go and visit artists and their studios, when we're looking to consider works for the collection, what we sometimes come across. So this image here is documenting the large gift by Johanna Domain of ceramics. And so they were all in just boxes and crates and everything, and then we had to document them, and we also started to build their internal crates. And while we had them all out, we also engaged a photographer. So that's another important part of collection management, is to ensure that we have beautiful high-res images of each artwork. That was set up in the depot, so we had a temporary space set up there. Another thing we do is build things, so we had to build a crate for this work, because this work is a Lincoln Austin. It's called Sky Door, and it was on display here quite a few years ago. The Ipswich Art Gallery were doing a touring exhibition, and they wanted to line the Lincoln Austin work, so we actually had to build that crate to enable it to be transported. So, which is good, because now it has a home that's protecting it. And with that, we have things that have to go on tour with the artwork, and that is a manual. So if you're loaning an artwork, we have to create these manuals which talks about how to dismantle the storage crate, how to install the artwork on the wall, to putting it back in and fixing it all together and getting it back on the truck, as well as documenting its condition. Conservation, we undertake some conservation practices, and where we can't do conservation ourselves, we engage other artists. So this pot, I don't know if you came to the latest and greatest, but it's quite a sizable ceramic piece. So Joe Furlonger and the pot was thrown by Errol Barnes, a Gold Coast artist. So that's how it came to us from Joe. And then we contacted Errol and asked him for his advice on cleaning this, and he said, I'll just bring it back and I'll refire it. So all he did was put it back in the kiln and fired it, and it came out nice and clean. So, so there's that, and then this is the one. It's just a little warning about bugs. If you've got any phobias, maybe not look. So there's a borer, and these are temperature readings of a space that we were going to put an artwork into. So we just needed to understand how stable the conditions were, or not stable, and what we have to do. But this little fellow escaped a work, and it was the Dreamtime Travellers, so it was an organic First Nations work, and I guess once it had been moved, there was a bit of movement that encouraged these little things to get moving, and we found one here, and it had come out of the plastic, so even though we wrapped it in plastic, it found a way out. So then we thought, well, the only other way that we can manage this and ensure that there's no more is to put it in a freezer. So we hired a portable cold room and put it in there for a week, and then that was the end of it. So it's, you know, it's great when we get artworks coming into the collection, but you do run that risk, and you can look and you can check the work and document it, but these things live inside the timber, and it wasn't until we started to move it and getting it ready to install that the movement seemed to get them moving. So yeah, we do constantly check works. You know, campuses, sort of corners that they will sort of get themselves quite cosy in. You know, we have to be very thorough with the checking. Other things, artist studios. So there's lovely Wendy in her studio. We were sort of talking about works for the collection. And the one on the right is Beatrice Cross. So that's that beautiful vertical group of aluminium etched photographs. So it's just that you get an insight into the practice. So we like to learn about the artist's practice as well. And of course, Stephen Dunlop's beautiful studio. It was all nice and clean, more like a showroom. So they were two works for consideration and he ended up gifting this one. And then you go from that to this. So this is Joe Furlonger. There he is crawling under one part of the studio to get a particular pot that he was thinking I would like for the collection. So it's, you know, this is just one of like 5 spaces that he has all sort of joined together. And there's some works that we were also considering, which are now in the collection. That's another one that's in the collection. I think that's none of the others show it, but it's just, you know, it goes against the grain of collection storage. These are just open sheds, you know, so there's all manner of bugs. So we really, whenever we get something from Joe, we really have to do it. You know, like wasp, you know, the mud nest, yeah, like they've been on the backs of work and had to take them off. You know, so it's, oh yeah, he's got lots of things in there. But it's an amazing collection of work. Like, he's just so prolific. And he's actually the Gomez doing a touring exhibition, which will come here, I think, next year. Is it the beginning of next year? We've got Joe Furlonger's exhibition from Quag. Yeah. So, but the idea is that knowing that there's other regional galleries that have Joe Furlonger in their collections, it's an opportunity for us to contribute to that touring show. So there'll be a lot of the works in our collection in that show as well. So that's a bit of what we collect. Now here is the actual focus areas of collecting to make sure that it's our framework to continuously align works to make sure that we have a cohesive collection that talks about the Sunshine Coast arts and culture, but also having national voices in this collection is great. And when we loan works to other galleries for their exhibitions, it puts the Sunshine Coast on the map in terms of our arts and culture, because people may want to know where those works come from, and every work has a caption, and it will usually say what collection it was drawn from with a touring exhibition in that. So for the fine art collection, arts and culture of the Sunshine Coast, so this is predominantly Sunshine Coast artists or topics that talk about or feature the Sunshine Coast. So Jack McRae, Judith Laws and Glenn Manning are local artists. We've got many examples, but that's just a few. The next one is Contemporary Australian Art, so that's our national voices and mainly the Sunshine Coast Art Prize, but Kate Tucker was the 2023 or 2022 winner. Gerwin Davies has been a finalist in a number of art prizes. Vicky Murray, that work came from the local contemporary, but she's a Melbourne-based artist. And the one on the end, Anne Zaholka, that's the New Bathers work, quite a renowned work and a renowned artist. So that's just a short, small example of our contemporary Australian art. And of course, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander art, both local and non-local. So Cindy Mills, she's local, but she's not Kabi or Ginniburra, but we have Ginniburra artists, and of course Kabi, the lovely Morris Piccolo in their collection. And then I'm going to go into public art, our focus areas, which Julie, you can sort of quickly touch on there. So there's Mountain Peak.
Yeah. So these ones are figurative and representative, but also stylish. So I don't know what else to say. Well, that I spoke to before. Yeah. So enduring and traditional public art. And then the integrated and functional, these are pieces that are integrated into infrastructure. So the bottom right-hand piece, if you haven't been to Boccarina Beach Park, it's a lovely piece by local artists, Glenn Manning and Kathy Daly, and it's mounted on the top of what's essentially a misting machine. The kids play with buttons that turn off and on the misting. And if it's a beautiful sunny day, the film that's in that work will actually cast enough colour you can see it on black. It's really beautiful, beautiful work. So on a sunny day, if you have a weekend or a weekday, pop down and take a wander down at Boccarina Beach Park. It's beautiful. And chorus. So the idea of these is they're singing, and so there's on the screens, there's like a pattern of movement representing sound of the two birds talking to each other. James and Eleanor. James Avery. Yeah. So the temporary and ephemeral public art mostly comes through performances and events like Horizon. So these were particular pieces out of Horizon. So another team in council does that, but we work quite often linking somehow if we can. Anything else on that one? No.
Thanks, Julie. and of course the importance of arts on the Sunshine Coast. So could you imagine the Sunshine Coast without public artworks, without a gallery, without artist studios and workshops and programs? So I think the regional gallery, we celebrate 25 years this year. That speaks to how important it is that the regional gallery is part of the region. And I know Margie's gone, but she was one of the early agitators for a regional gallery here, along with a few others. So, and then of course the art collection. So something about public art is it's a means for community to connect. It's connection to place. It helps with our identity, as does the art collection, and being visible across the region through libraries, and the Sunshine Coast City Hall enables us to actually speak to that and demonstrate that the arts are part of our everyday on the coast. And looking ahead, so the new gallery. So the most recent thing that's happened is that the business case was endorsed by council, and prior to that, the Creative Arts Plan talks about a new gallery. Prior to that, the Regional Arts Infrastructure Plan also talked about identifying that the region is in need of a new regional gallery, plus a couple of other facilities in the hinterland. So, we have this huge population boom. This is a tiny gallery, and it's been a great gallery, but we are bursting at the seams, and the possibilities that enables us to explore even more, high-profile national exhibitions, but also focus on the collection exhibitions, plus local spaces for local exhibitions. That's where we're looking, is to be able to have something, a hub that does all of those things. And so we've got the business case, and there is a design competition, like an architectural design competition about to happen. And I think in a few weeks.
Yeah, so there'll be some news in the media from about 3rd of March, I believe it is.
Yeah. So that's a good sign that there are councillors still thinking in that space. It's probably not going to be built before the Olympics, but it's going to take a lot of fundraising. We have to have a compelling story for both federal and state funding, and of course philanthropy to help fundraise and get things going. But imagine what it could be, and so that's sort of looking ahead. Now, we've got questions? The Library Plus? Yeah.
Cheese. I can't give you any details.
But the Library Plus building across the road, that's been underway for some time and getting closer and closer. Just confirming, we have 2 commissions happening for public artwork in that location, in the entrance and just inside. And all I can say is one of them is local, which we're very excited about. But keep your eyes open once that building is open. They're really gorgeous works that are coming.
And there will be an announcement about that soon. So as to who and what. So watch that space, and of course watch that space. So so I'm happy to take questions from the floor.
I've always got a question.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I guess it involves both you ladies, and thank you so much for all the information you've already passed on. I am interested in knowing, at what point do you get involved in a public art installation? For instance, we've got such a growing area here. And does the developer of an area approach you about installing a public art piece in a certain area, or does that come from another direction?
It varies.
Yeah, it does. So I can speak to the 4 impossible things before breakfast, which are the large flowers that you might notice in the main street here. That was part of funding through Council's capital program for the streetscape. So that one we commissioned prior to the works actually happening on the road and finishing on the road before they could be installed. So it takes several years to develop a public artwork, from the funding and the identification of the location and the development, and then going through a process of call out for artists and then selection with the panel and commissioning, and then they have to construct it and install it and so forth. The chorus, which is the 2 birds, that was done by a developer with Stockland, and in that process we were kind of not in partnership with them, but we were informed of what was happening, and so we could kind of see what was coming and provide some feedback around the suitability of the work and how that affects the look and I guess the livability quality of the Sunshine Coast. That piece is a real entry piece for the southern access to the coast, and it will become a bigger access to the coast. So something that was really striking. And Urban Art Projects in Brisbane, they're global now, but they started in Brisbane. They're the company who actually facilitated the making and installing of that work. But Council was involved through feedback and discussions and site visits before it was constructed, and it was all very exciting.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes.
The proposed new gallery, has Council allocated land and will it work there?
Look, they have, but that's not to say, in years' time it might change. But at the moment, it's the current library building. That area is that's been suggested as the preferred location. Yeah, and the building, the red brick building behind us, once the library building is finished and the library is relocated over to the new regional library, district library, that old red brick building will be demolished and open up, so you have a sense of this green space like a town square. And the idea is that you could be at Bullcock Beach and you would have a nice clear sight line through that park to the new library, the new gallery, and then to the event centre. So a precinct experience.
Do they have any plans to stop the traffic and make it more like a mall so it's all open?
Good question. I don't know. Look, there was in Almra Avenue between us currently and the new library that potentially was going to be like more pedestrian, but don't know. It's too early to say. Yeah. So, any other questions? Yes. Another one.
How do you store digital art?
Well, we're learning about that actually because it's relatively new for us, but what we have learned, and I've just reached out to other institutions, just by asking them what they do with their digital works, and essentially each piece we have to be provided with the archival master file, but then from that we also need 2 to 3 copies of a still image, like a high-res and a low-res, and then exhibition copies so that we can loan a digital work using the exhibition copy, but we will always have the master archival copy in the store.
So when somebody wants to enter one of our competitions with a digital piece, do you have guidelines like file formats and that sort of thing?
Look, there is file formats that are prescribed in the terms and conditions, but not to that detail. If they were to come into the collection, or if they were to win, or come into the collection one way or another, then we will have those conversations. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I think, yes, Fiona.
Just before everybody takes
I'll hand it over to you, so thank you.
Thank you for applauding Nina and Julie for a very interesting talk this morning. I forgot to introduce myself. I do recognise most faces here today. I'm the president of the Friends of the Gallery, and we run events and different activities throughout the year in the gallery and outside the gallery, just for everybody here who likes the arty sort of stuff as much as we do. We just recently had a great bus trip down to Pagona to see the Asia Pacific Triennial, and it was a fun day out, great fun day out. We have the local contemporary art prize coming up after this beautiful exhibition, and entries have closed there, and you'll be hearing about the opening event in due course. But friends do support financially the local contemporary and the student art prize. We hope to have an event or something, maybe a lunch again like we did last time. 25 years of this beautiful gallery. Margie sitting down the back there in blue. She was on one of the original Friends committees that wanted a gallery in this town, wanted a gallery for our region, and that's how this beautiful little gallery came about 25 years ago. So Friends have been working very hard for 25 years. So it's Silver Jubilee, there's lots of celebrations in August this year. But alongside the things we do, of course, is Jenny sitting down the back there. She's the go-to for all the wonderful programs and workshops, etc. And if you're on the gallery website, the email list, you'll also get notifications of those wonderful activities as well. And generally, we send them out to you as well. Yesterday, you probably received an email. We're very fortunate to have 25 tickets available to go and see the Andy Warhol movie, which is going to be a great little fundraiser for the Friends as well. So today was a free event. Well, you missed the opportunity of running a raffle. Today was a free event, but there are events that we ask you to pay to come along to, so that we can put money back into the gallery and support programs and sponsorships as well. So thank you very much for coming, and there's still a little bit of morning tea left over if you'd like to. Jenny's about to speak.
I just want to say, in your fundraising quest, one of the fabulous things that the Friends do support is the education kits for the exhibitions. So we're very grateful that we can outsource an educator to compile those kits for us, and we have 4 of those throughout the year alongside 4 of our significant exhibitions in the program, and then we send those resources out to primary schools and high schools. We have a kit for each school, the secondary and primary schools, and then the teachers use that as a resource and bring student groups here, so we really appreciate the funds. So support the Friends, because that comes back and supports us.
That's right. Thank you very much, Jenny. And thank you all for coming this morning, and thanks again for the lovely speakers.
Thank you.